This is the last gaming PC build guide you'll need until 2026. Hey guys, welcome to Elevated Systems. I'm so excited to start another year with y'all. Your support has been great, and I want to thank every one of you who come back to the channel week after week to see what I'm up to. And I'm super stoked to be starting 2023 with a PC build guide that'll last you well into the future. Longevity is definitely a factor when it comes to building a gaming PC. AMD has been great at providing long-term support for the AM4 socket for over 5 years and 4 generations of CPUs. Now they promise to support the new AM5 platform through 2025 and beyond. However, the number one factor when building a gaming PC is cost. Your budget drives your decisions, and that's why I focus on entry-level to mid-range PC builds on this channel. In fact, the most sold pre-built gaming PCs are in the $1,100 to $1,200 price range. However, in 2023, if you want to build a gaming PC using current gen hardware, you're going to need to spend a little more than that, but not much. The goals of this build are longevity, affordability, and the ability to play all the games that people play. We're shooting for 1080p gaming approaching 144 FPS or good 1440p gaming at 60 FPS or better. Let's go over all the parts and get this build started so we can see how it games. Now, I'm not gonna bore you with all the technical details and specs. If numbers are your thing, you can check out the links in the description. I wanna talk about what really matters: affordability, longevity, and performance. That's what I'm all about here. Let's start with the CPU. The Ryzen 5 7600 may have been slightly disappointing at launch, but its recent price cut makes it a more affordable option. Its performance is also impressive, as demonstrated in a recent hardware unbox video where it outperformed the 5800X 3D in over 50 games. Furthermore, the 7600X is a Zen 4 CPU using AMD's AM5 socket, making it a durable and long-lasting choice. That leads us to the AM5 motherboard, the MSI Pro B650A Wi-Fi. If you're a regular viewer, you'll know that my favorite form factor is micro ATX. ATX motherboards typically give you all the features you need without inflating the cost with a bunch of nice to have but not necessary bells and whistles. This board is no exception. Beefy power delivery, plenty of IO expandability, 2 Gen 4 M.2 slots, 2.5 gigabit LAN and Wi-Fi 6E, and at $200, it's one of the most affordable AM5 boards available, coming in $20 to $30 cheaper than its full-size ATX version. Of course, AM5 means DDR5, and I got a 32 gigabyte kit of Corsair Vengeance LPX DDR5 5600, not the flashiest or the fastest memory, but at $150, definitely a great value. For storage, I have a 1TB Samsung 980 Pro NVMe SSD. This was probably the best Gen 4 SSD available until Samsung released the 990 Pro, which is great for us because now you can get one of these for under $100. Okay, now let's get to what makes a gaming PC, the graphics card. This is the PowerColor Red Devil RX 6750 XT. When these 50 series cards were first released, they fell flat because they offered only a small performance increase at a significantly higher price. This resulted in poor reviews and a lack of popularity, leading to price cuts. Now you can find the RX 6750 XT for around the same price as the RX 6700 XT and significantly cheaper than the RX 6800. I personally got mine for $430, but I've seen them for under $400. It's still a current gen card, as AMD has only released their top tier 7900 series RDNA 3 card so far. In terms of performance, it's about equivalent to an RTX 3070, but $100 cheaper. However, if you're not committed to an all AMD build, or you just use your PC for more than gaming like content creation or streaming, then the best option for the same price on the NVIDIA side would be the RTX 3060 Ti. You'll get slightly less pure rasterization performance, but you'll make up for it with better upscaling, ray tracing, and a much better media engine. Okay, let's talk about the 2 things I had to readjust from my original build plan. First, I purchased every part in this build myself except the cooler. Enermax sent me their new AquaFusion Advanced coolers to review, and I want to use the 240mm version for this build, but it's white. So just for aesthetic reasons, you'll see the black 360mm version in the B-roll and build footage, but all the actual testing, gaming performance, thermals, and noise levels will be done with the AquaFusion 240. Now, Enermax isn't a sponsor, but I have to give them props for reaching out to me and trying to improve their products after I and others gave them pretty harsh constructive criticism in the past. It's not often we see companies take that kind of approach, so kudos to Enermax for that. Anyway, I just had to put that out there. Moving on, the case, while I was originally looking forward to using the Johnsbow D31 Mesh SC, shipping delays have forced me to go with the Asus AP201 instead. While the D31 does have a few extra features such as a built-in LED display, the AP201 is still a fantastic case in its own right. In fact, I did a full review of the AP201 a couple of months ago, and I was thoroughly impressed by its quality and design as an MATX case. I'll definitely be sure to give the D31 a full review as soon as it arrives, so be sure to subscribe for that. But in the meantime, AP201 is more than a suitable substitute. Finally, the power supply is the Corsair CX750M. I've built a lot of mid-range gaming PCs, and this PSU is always my go-to. It's affordable, semi-modular, and super reliable. 750 watts may be overkill for this hardware, but it gives us room to upgrade in the future. Overall, the build comes in at $1,363 before tax and shipping. But if you want to trim some cost, you can go with an air tower cooler for about $30 to $40 less, and either dial back the PBO settings or just accept slightly higher CPU temperatures. You can also save about $20 by choosing a lower priced 1TB SSD that still performs well. And if you're willing to go with a more entry-level case, you can find options in the $50 to $60 price range. All in all, you can build this core gaming system for around $100 less while still achieving the same goals. Speaking of those goals, let's get this thing assembled and see how we did. The gaming rig is finished and it was a smooth build. This is the fourth time I've put together a system in this case, and just like the last three, everything went off without a hitch. However, I have discovered the max length combos for GPUs, power supplies, and coolers. To fit the 360mm AIO, the power supply needs to be stalled in the lowest position, which means my 335mm long Red Devil graphics card just barely squeezes in. It's tight, but it works. I did make a change to the build and ended up leaving the Enermax 360mm AIO in there. I just wanted to start gaming after building it and shooting all the B-roll. Now, I don't recommend a 360mm AIO for a Ryzen 5 7600X. It's a bit overkill, but the AquaFusion 360 is only 20 bucks more than the 240, and it gives the system plenty of thermal headroom if we decide to upgrade the CPU in the future. In fact, considering how thermally demanding these CPUs are getting, a 360mm AIO may be the standard for a 6-core CPU in a generation or two. Plus, The bigger cooler kept the temps in the 60s while gaming, and peak temp under an AIDA64 stress test was only 82 degrees. I was able to back down my fan curve to a max RPM of just 70% while keeping the noise levels to a minimum in this mesh case. Speaking of mesh, there's one addition I would make to this build, adding a couple of fans to the bottom. As it is, the build has a negative airflow, which means air is being pulled in from all sides. By adding some fans, we can balance the airflow through the bottom filter and reduce the amount of dust that accumulates inside this case. Plus, it'll help keep the GPU cool, not that it really needs it. Even after a 20-minute run in Port Royal, the GPU only hit 68 degrees and stayed in the low to mid 60s during regular gaming. And gaming is where I spent most of my time with this build. I tested a ton of games on it, and I gotta say, AMD has really stepped up their driver implementation for the 6000 series. The RX 6750 XT definitely exceeded my expectations. I was aiming for a build that could hit around 144 FPS at 1080p and over 60 FPS at 1440 in AAA titles, but what I ended up with is a rig that approaches 200 FPS at 1080p and 144 FPS at 1440p. Let's start with 1080p. In Apex Legends at 1080p, all graphics maxed, I ran around the training map for a bit, averaging 240 FPS. Everything was smooth, and while I noticed some spikes up to 300 FPS, 1% lows stayed above 200. I also tested out Modern Warfare 2, and it was a smooth ride. Running at 1080p Ultra, I was getting an average of 130 FPS in the campaign, with lows never dropping below 100. I didn't have a chance to try out multiplayer with my squad because, well, they all have real jobs, but I did run the multiplayer benchmark, and I was getting similar FPS to the campaign. I also tried out FSR in performance mode, and it boosted my average FPS by 56% without sacrificing any visual fidelity. The last game I tested at 1080p was Cyberpunk 2077, and at a high preset, the game ran great. I was able to play around in the busy daytime streets and even some rainy nighttime gun battles with FPS averages in the 120s to 130 range. I also tried out some ray traced reflections and lighting at medium with FSR in performance mode, and the FPS only dropped into the 90s, which is still totally playable for this game. I even bumped up the resolution to 1440p, and without ray tracing and FSR set to balanced, I was back into the 120s and had the best visual experience. So from this point, I tested the rest of the games at 1440p with high to ultra presets and, if available, FSR enabled in balanced or performance mode. And I'll just shut up now and let you check out a few more titles I tested. So there you have it. I'm not going to go into a deep dive analysis of the build and its performance. I'll just say this rig is a powerhouse for the price, delivering outstanding performance that will keep up for years to come. I think I achieved my goals with this build. It's affordable, or as affordable as a current gen PC can be. It performs well and has room for future updates that should be supported on this platform for at least the next 3 years. But what do you think of the build? Does it hit the performance you'd expect for the cost? What changes would you make to the system, if any? Let us know in the comments. While you're there, be sure to click that like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.